It was the winter of 2023 in a quiet suburb of upstate New York, where the snow fell like a relentless shroud over everything. I just moved into an old Victorian house on Elm Street, inherited from a distant aunt I barely knew. The place was drafty, with creaking floors and walls that seemed to whisper when the wind picked up. Christmas was approaching, and to shake off the isolation, I decided to decorate. I strung up multicolored lights along the porch railing, the kind that twinkled in patterns. They looked cheerful against the gray sky, but something about the way they reflected off the icicles felt off, like they were staring back. That first night, after hanging the lights, I sat by the window with a cup of hot cocoa, watching the neighborhood. Most houses were dark. Folks here kept to themselves. My lights pulsed gently red, green, blue in a soothing rhythm. But around midnight, the pattern changed. Instead of the usual cycle, they began to flicker erratically, as if responding to something unseen. I chalked it up to a faulty timer and went to bed. But sleep didn't come easy. The house groaned like it was alive. The next morning, I woke to a blanket of fresh snow. Shoveling the driveway, I noticed the lights were still on, even though I'd unplugged them the night before. Weird, but old wiring, right? I reset them and headed to work at the local library, where I cataloged dusty books. All day, a nagging unease followed me like eyes on my back. When I returned home at twilight, the lights were glowing again, brighter than before, casting long shadows across the yard. That evening, while cooking dinner, I glanced out the kitchen window. The lights seemed to sync with my movements, dimming when I turned away, flaring up when I looked back. I laughed it off as paranoia from living alone. But as I ate, a low hum started, vibrating through the walls. It matched the light's rhythm, like a heartbeat. I checked outside. No one there, just the empty street under a moonless sky. Sleep evaded me again. Lying in bed, I heard scratching at the window, faint like branches, but there were no trees nearby. Peeking out, I saw the lights twisting slightly on their strings, as if pulled by invisible hands. My heart raced. I drew the curtains and tried to ignore it, telling myself it was the wind. But deep down, a chill settled in, unrelated to the cold. Over the next few days, the anomalies escalated. The lights stayed on constantly, defying power outages that hit the block. Neighbors complained about blackouts, but my house remained illuminated, a beacon in the dark. I started avoiding the windows, but even inside, shadows danced on the walls in sync with the flickers. One afternoon, while reading in the living room, I felt watched intensely, personally. I confided in a coworker, but she dismissed it as holiday stress. That night, the hum grew louder, almost a whisper. Straining to listen, I swore I heard fragments of words. Watch you. I unplugged everything. Even yanked the fuses, but the lights persisted, glowing with an inner light that shouldn't exist. Panic set in. I barricaded the doors. Venturing out the next day, I visited the hardware store for new lights, hoping to replace them. The clerk mentioned odd reports from others' lights that acted funny this season. Back home, as I removed the old strands, they felt warm, almost alive, pulsing under my fingers. I threw them in the trash, but by evening, they were back on the porch, neatly hung as before. The watching sensation intensified. Everywhere I went in the house, the lights followed, their colors shifting to match my mood: red when angry, blue when scared. I stopped leaving. Groceries delivered, work called in sick. Isolation bred hallucinations, reflections in mirrors showing eyes in the lights, blinking back. One stormy night, the power grid failed citywide. My house alone shone like a lighthouse in hell. The hum became voices, murmuring my name, secrets from my past. I grabbed the flashlight and investigated the attic, where Aunt's old boxes gathered dust. Among them, a journal. She wrote of the watchers and the wires, entities drawn to light, feeding on fear. The journal detailed how the lights weren't just decorations, they were conduits. Decades ago, a local legend spoke of spirits trapped in the town's old power lines, awakened by holiday cheer turned sour. Aunt had seen them too, but ignored until too late. Her last entry, they see through the bulbs, and they're hungry. Terror mounting, I smashed the bulbs with a hammer. Glass shattered, but instead of darkening, sparks flew, reforming into brighter orbs. The house shook, walls cracked. The voices screamed now, accusing, pulling me toward the porch. I fought, but an invisible force dragged me closer. In the climax of that nightmare, I stood on the porch as the lights converged, forming a grotesque figure of twisted wires and bulbs. It loomed, eyes everywhere, whispering my deepest fears. I remembered the journal's warning, deny them light. With trembling hands, I doused the figure in gasoline from the garage and lit a match. Flames erupted, consuming the entity in a blaze that lit the night. The fire department arrived too late. The house was gutted, but I survived, scorched and scarred. They called it an electrical fault. Now in a sterile apartment far away, I avoid holidays. But sometimes, in the dead of night, I see flickers in street lamps, watching, waiting. The watchers aren't gone, they're just patient. It's been a year, and I've pieced my life back together. But last week, unpacking boxes, I found a single bulb unbroken, glowing faintly in the dark. I crushed it underfoot, but the hum returns in my dreams. They're out there, in every string of lights, watching us all. It was the winter of 2022, in a fog-shrouded town called Blackwood Hollow, nestled in the misty hills of rural England. I'd relocated there after a messy divorce, seeking solitude in a creaky old cottage on the edge of the woods. The place was cheap, with peeling wallpaper and a perpetual chill that seeped through the stone walls. Christmas was looming, and though I wasn't in the festive spirit, I dragged out an artificial tree from the attic to fend off the loneliness. As I fluffed its branches in the dim living room, something caught my eye, a small, wrapped package tucked beneath, tied with faded red ribbon. It wasn't mine. I hadn't bought any gifts. The package was unassuming, about the size of a shoebox, wrapped in brown paper, dotted with age spots. No tag, no name. I figured the previous tenants had left it behind, maybe a forgotten relic. I left it there, thinking it added a touch of mystery to my otherwise barren holiday setup. That night, as rain pattered against the roof, I sipped tea by the fire, but my gaze kept drifting to the tree. The room felt heavier, like the air was thickening. Morning brought a blanket of frost over the hollow. I shoveled the path to my car, heading to the local shop for supplies. The villagers were tight-lipped, exchanging glances when I mentioned the cottage. Old place, that, one muttered. Back home, I noticed the package had shifted slightly, now closer to the tree's trunk. Odd, but perhaps I'd bumped it. I ignored it and hung some tarnished ornaments, trying to brighten the gloom. That evening, while reading an old novel, a faint scratching echoed from the living room like nails on wood. I checked. Nothing amiss, but the package seemed fuller, as if something inside had settled. I picked it up, feeling a subtle warmth through the paper. Shaking it gently yielded no sound, just a dense weight. Unease prickled my skin, but I set it back, blaming the drafty house for my nerves. Sleep was fitful. Dreams of whispering voices filled my head, urging me to unwrap the gift. Waking at dawn, I found the ribbon untied, dangling loosely. Panic flickered. Had I sleepwalked? I retied it tightly and went for a walk in the woods, where twisted oaks loomed like sentinels. The fog clung low, muffling sounds, amplifying my isolation. Returning, the package was centered perfectly under the tree again. Now, a faint odor emanated, musty, like damp earth mixed with decay. I debated throwing it out, but curiosity won. Peeling back a corner revealed black tissue paper inside. My hands trembled, I stopped and covered it, heart pounding. The cottage felt watchful, shadows lengthening unnaturally. Days blurred. The scratching returned nightly, louder, rhythmic. I barricaded myself in the bedroom, but it seeped through walls. One afternoon, researching the cottage online at the village library, I found whispers of a tragedy. A family vanished decades ago, leaving behind unwanted gifts. The librarian shushed me, eyes wide. Homeward, dread coiled tighter. That night, the package pulsed faintly under the paper, like a heartbeat. I stared from the doorway, frozen. A whisper slithered through the air. For you. I fled upstairs, but in the mirror, my reflection seemed distorted, eyes hollow. Sleep brought nightmares of hands emerging from the box, grasping. Isolation deepened. I avoided the living room, but hunger forced me down. The package had unwrapped itself partially, revealing a wooden box etched with strange symbols. The odor intensified, choking. Touching it sent a jolt like static, but alive. Visions flashed. A child, long ago, burying something under the floorboards. The next storm raged, wind howling like banshees. Power flickered out, plunging the cottage into darkness. Yet the package emitted a soft granish glow. Approaching, I heard tiny movements inside scuttling, breathing. Terror mounted. I grabbed a poker from the fire, ready to smash it. But the whispers grew. Open me. Claim your inheritance. Delving deeper, I tore up floorboards near the tree. Beneath lay remnants, old bones, child-sized, clutched around a similar box. The family legend wasn't vanishings, they'd been consumed. The gift was a curse, passed to intruders. My hands bled from splinters, but I couldn't stop. The box upstairs now thrummed audibly. Racing down, I found it open, empty, but no, something slithered out. A shadowy tendril coiling toward me. It wasn't a gift. It was a vessel for whatever haunted this place. The air thickened with malice, walls creaking as if the house awoke. High traw erupted as the entity manifested a writhing mass of darkness, eyes gleaming from within, feeding on my fear. It lunged, whispering sins I'd buried. I swung the poker, striking the box. It shattered, releasing a scream that shook the foundations. Flames spontaneously ignited, consuming the tree, the shadows retreating in agony. I stumbled out into the storm, cottage ablaze behind me. Villagers arrived, murmuring of the old curse lifted. But in my new flat miles away, unpacking, a small ribbon fell from my coat pocket faded red, warm to the touch. The whispers return in quiet moments, promising another gift. Years on, I shun holidays. But last Christmas, under my bare tree in a London apartment, a package appeared overnight. Untagged, waiting. I burned it without opening, but the cycle feels eternal. The gift that wasn't mine. It's everyone's now. It was the winter of 2019, in a remote village nestled in the frozen wilds of northern Sweden, where the aurora borealis danced like ghostly veils across the endless night sky. I'd come here to escape the chaos of city life in Stockholm, renting a weathered log cabin on the outskirts of Kiruna. The place was isolated, surrounded by vast pine forests blanketed in snow, with the nearest neighbor a kilometer away. Christmas was days away, and the perpetual twilight cast long shadows that made everything feel suspended in time. To embrace the season, I built a snowman in the front yard one crisp afternoon. Coal eyes, carrot nose, scarf from my suitcase. It stood sentinel-like, facing the cabin door. That evening, as I warmed by the wood stove with a mug of glag, the wind howled outside, rattling the windows. The snowman looked picturesque through the frosted glass, a harmless figure in the dim light. But around midnight, a knock echoed 3 deliberate raps on the door. I froze, heart skipping. Peering out, nothing but swirling snow and the silent snowman, unmoved. The next morning, fresh powder covered everything. Shoveling the path, I noticed footprints, large, uneven, leading from the snowman to the door and back. They weren't mine. Too deep, too wide. Wildlife, perhaps. I brushed it off and added sticks for arms to the snowman, trying to shake the unease. The village store clerk mentioned old folklore about Vintervusen winter spirits, but laughed it away. Twilight fell early. Inside, I read by lamplight, but the knocking returned at midnight, louder, insistent. I armed myself with a poker and flung the door open. Empty porch, wind-swept snow, the snowman now seemingly tilted toward the cabin. My breath fogged the air. I slammed the door, pulse racing. Sleep came in fits, dreams of icy hands grasping. Waking to a chill, I found the window unlatched, snow drifting in. Outside, the footprints multiplied, circling the cabin. The snowman's coal eyes gleamed unnaturally in the moonlight, as if reflecting something internal. Days shortened further. Isolation gnawed, phone signal weak. I avoided the yard, but glimpsed the snowman from afar. It seemed closer to the door each time, inches at a time. Paranoia? Melting and refreezing? I reinforced the locks, stacked firewood inside. One afternoon, exploring the attic for distractions, I found yellowed journals from previous occupants. Entries spoke of the knocker, an entity born from loneliness, manifesting in snow forms during Yuletide. Dismissed as superstition, but a chill settled deeper. That night, the knocking evolved, scratching now, like claws on wood. I shouted into the darkness, but only silence replied. Peeking through curtains, the snowman was mere feet from the porch, arms outstretched as if reaching. The odor started, then rotting earth beneath snow, seeping through cracks. I burned sage from the village, but it only intensified. Whispers joined the knocks, my name, faint, pleading. I barricaded windows, heart thundering. Venturing out at dawn, I approached the snowman. Its surface was marred, veins of ice like cracks in flesh. Touching it, my hand stuck briefly, a burning cold. Pulling away, I saw my palm blistered. Research at the village library revealed more. Legends of a miner lost in a blizzard centuries ago, his spirit seeking warmth by inhabiting effigies. Victims found frozen, smiling. I returned home trembling, the sun dipping low. Midnight brought pounding fists now, shaking the walls. The whispers loudened, "Let me in." Through the peephole, the snowman loomed on the porch, face pressed to the door, carrot nose scraping glass. Terror peaked. I grabbed an axe from the shed, chopping at the snowman. Limbs reformed, snow swirling like tendrils. It moved, lurching, grasping with icy fingers. The air froze. My breath's visible plumes. In the climax, the entity revealed itself, a skeletal form within the snow, eyes burning blue. It whispered of eternal cold, pulling me into embrace. I swung wildly, shattering the core. A wail pierced the night as it dissolved into flakes. I fled to the village, collapsing at an inn. Authorities blamed hallucinations from isolation. But scars remained, frostbite where it touched. Now in a city flat, I dread snow. Last winter, a tiny snow figure appeared on my sill overnight. The knocking echoes in dreams. It's not over. Winter spirits are patient, waiting for the next effigy.